Good evening and welcome to another episode of In the Trees with your host, Matt and
Derek.
And tonight's episode, we're going to talk about Area 51 and secret military underground bases. Derek, what are your thoughts on that initially?
Initially, I mean, I don't really know too much about Area 51, really, beyond what you've seen in, like, Hollywood movies, your basic, just standard theories I've heard throughout just, me being in the conspiracy train that I've now jumped aboard.
The big Facebook event.
That's probably one of my more knowledgeable events where, everybody was basically doing some Naruto running or were allegedly going to do Naruto run to dodge bullets. I don't think that would have been successful, but I was definitely wanting that to happen.
Definitely not.
They armed up. It was just funny because, we don't want people actually coming here, so we're actually going to put, whatever. I'm not going to talk about either that or what they really were trying to hide, but that's what you're doing today. So That's what we're here to talk about today, guys.
Folks, there's a lot that I'm familiar with Area 51. I'm no expert. We do have some lined up for you, but what I know about Area 51 personally, that it was built in 1947. Mid-70s, it became inaccessible anywhere near. The public used to be able to go up on the mountain ranges occasionally and see the airplanes. They tested the B-52 stealth bomber there the first time ever. That was also where part of the atomic program, when they're developing the first nuclear bomb. They also supposedly housed the remnants of the Roswell crash before those parts were sent out for reverse engineering. After the crash happened in New Mexico, that's where they took them. And then the parts were scattered from there. But supposedly Area 51 has a long history of not only housing extraterrestrials, Derek, but actually having extraterrestrial craft that have been recovered and housing extraterrestrials themselves in different environments even, so suited to the particular species of alien. That sounds wild, I know, but even this, they were also supposedly the site of the first underground military base installation ever achieved by the United States government back in the early 70s, I believe. But as a whole, Area 51 holds lots and lots of mysteries that we
I think you mentioned the DUMBs before. I think that's what you're kind of touching on right now.
Yeah.
Basically.
Absolutely. Deep underground military bases was the acronym. And there's supposedly almost 100 in the United States. You got to wonder, why underground? I mean, there's been some videos I've seen that showed blueprints of machines capable of making tunnels for kind of like a maglev transportation system. In fact, we're going to touch on that today with our videos, but we should definitely show the audience. Here's some experts in the field, folks. First, we're going to show you Richard Doty, a retired Air Force investigator, and he has his opinion. He actually apparently was stationed at Area 51, Derek, back in the early to mid 80s, I believe. Sorry, and let's roll the clip.
Roll the clip
of an alien being from outside planet.
First of all, let me explain what Area 51 is. Area 51 is a base located within the Nellis Test and Training Range. The official name of Area 51 is a Groom-like complex,
correct,
which houses the Air Force's Test and Evaluation Detachment 3,
this is a great
which
series,
tests
everybody.
research and development aircrafts in that area or on that base.
That guy's
Your
definitely not an
question,
evil villain
was
either.
there a extraterrestrial housed there? Yes.
If you're
the answer is
wondering.
yes. There was a special location northwest of Papoose Lake called the S2 Complex, which housed extraterrestrial, I'll call them visitors.
Are these remains of the infamous Roswell crash in the year
Matt just kind of touched
1947?
on that.
I was stationed there between 1982 and 1985 at various times.
Here someone was
During
born.
that time period, the only thing we had there were live ETs that we either found in a crash site or came to us in some other manner. And they were being detained in there. And the reason they're being detained there is some of the ETs have unique biological structures, which required a different atmosphere for them to breathe and a different environment for them.
I can understand
And we
that,
built
I guess.
these containment centers, we call them, in order for them to maintain life on this planet. Now, none of them there, we didn't have any bodies there. We had all live ETs, live beings.
I mean,
The
that's crazy
crash
just
site
hearing that
at
as it is.
Roswell, or actually Corona, New Mexico,
It'd be
contained
easy to
5
get rid of that.
dead
One
ETs.
hungry day. Like, okay,
Those
guys, we're
bodies
having
were
mystery
transported
meats
to a special laboratory, a cryogenic laboratory, to
But notice how he
maintain
said there
their
was 2
being or
crashes.
their structure
Yeah.
while we studied them. And of course, the one live alien that we found at the scene, EBA 1, but he died in 1952 before Area 51 was ever created.
Well, you just confirmed that live alien beings are housed at Area 51. Do the people working there, the
Pretty sure
soldiers,
this
do
guy's
they
a
know
UFO
about it?
man.
Well, everything's compartmented
does look a little
in a
bit
special access program. And just the knowledge, the mere fact that we had extraterrestrials in our possession was highly classified. We call it a special access program, or compartmentization. So
Really nice
not everyone
guy.
on the base knew it. Only the people that worked
Oh, yeah,
there,
sure.
within the complex, within
It's
the
the
S2.
mustache, I think. All right, so that was that first one, guys. We were kind of goofing off in the background here a little bit. Hopefully that didn't distract too much.
But did you see what he was talking about?
Yeah, he was kind of going into like the S2. I think you vaguely mentioned that before. It's like type of classification.
Right. There's some sort of the theory is that there's 4 independent subsections of Area 51, S1 through S4. I've only ever been really renowned on S2 from Richard Doty and S4 from Bob Lazar, who we're going to talk about in a minute. But next, we're going to show everybody about John Lear. And if anybody knows anything about aircraft mechanics and stuff, the Lear jet was one of the first to hit Mach 1. And John Lear is his son, the inventor's son that we're about to watch the video of. Roll the clip for everybody.
I'm rolling the clip, but by son, he means his dude is old as dirt.
So, John, when were you first introduced to Area
It's not that
51
bad.
and why?
It's an interesting story. I was flying gliders in the Pahrump Valley, and
This guy
because
may or
a
may
lot
not
of
be
the
dead now.
workers
Oh, he's
at
dead.
Area 51
Yeah,
lived in Pahrump, some of them would gravitate down to the
This is like 6
this
years
airfield because nothing went on there, and they didn't,
Anyways,
nothing
there's-
else
there's
was going
just so many
on, and
testimonies
there's only
that
a
I
few
have
people
to
there at any time. But
start to
anyway,
wonder
after one of my flights, we're all sitting
how
around
many people are
talking,
trying
and
to
I happened to have a
achieve
map
what
of
at
the
the same
Nevada
time?
test site they were talking about, and one of the guys said, "Yeah, I work up there, but I don't get any Area 51 stuff." And I'm thinking, Area 51? I never heard that before. And so I started checking around Area 51 and found out that surrounded Groom Lake. Now, I'd heard about Groom Lake because when I first came up to Vegas in 1966 to start that third-level airline,
It definitely
I knew a
was.
guy
Cool things are
named
happening in
Dick
Nevada.
Wiesner, and
Yeah,
he
in that
flew for
period of
Carco.
time.
Carco was the predecessor of Special Project, and they flew Bonanzas and twin Bonanzas, and they flew the F-27 to Dr. Teller's place.
He also
And
was best
Dick
friends
was telling me one day about taking a flight
I
north
know who Bob Lazar is.
with a general,
We have a clip of
and
that
he
later
said
on.
there's a strip
Yeah.
that was so long you wouldn't believe it. And I said, "What's it called?" He said, "They call it Groom Lake." And that's the first I heard of Groom Lake. Well, at the same time, I put Area 51 together because I thought all of this was up at Tonopah.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was on Groom Lake. So that's when I first learned about that. Somebody gave me
All right, guys, so that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And so basically, John Lear is just another one of the people that attests to the fact that Area 51 had a lot of secretive things going on. But back in the day, anybody that knew where it was could pass by there and see it. The next person we need to show everybody is the legend, Bob Lazar. He literally has some of the best testimony anybody has, folks, about Area 51 and their inside operations, because he was a scientist.
Yeah, I think I've seen him on like Joe Rogan a couple times. I know he had a special out. I think it was. Well, I'm not sure what streaming service it was, but I think it might have been Netflix. He had a
Yep.
special.
Yep. Area 51,
Yeah,
Bob Lazar,
so
and Area
but
51.
Bob, out of all
Yeah.
these guys that are, these scientists that allegedly worked at, well, I wouldn't say allegedly because they did.
Associated with.
Associated with, the Area 51, he's best associated with that and some type of element.
Element 115.
115, yeah.
And
It's
he's
some
got the
super,
It's a superconductor. It's a super heavy element. And
That's
when
how
it's
I guess,
when it's hit with protons, it turns into 116.
Yeah, and I guess that's some super fuel, allegedly.
It actually can propel magnetic levitation with gravity influx field, apparently.
Which is what I guess would have caused UFOs to fly like they would be flying.
It's the number one way that they fly.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, like, I've seen the Joe Rogan kind of thing. I want to like clip into that, but you actually have one of the very first kind of interviews.
it is the first interview he ever had on TV, syndicated news network, with George Knapp, the legendary newscaster. Roll the clip.
I'm gonna roll that clip, guys, real quick. Boom.
A local scientist who says he worked at Groom Lake and saw the saucers joins us in tonight's interview. He has asked
This
that his
is May
identity
15th,
be shielded.
1989.
Sir, how do
I
we
would
know
be
you
scared
are who you
shitless if
say
I
you
was
are
him.
and that you actually have knowledge about what's going on at Groom Lake?
Well, I guess there's no way you could really
This
know.
is before you kind of wanted to become public. So this is why his kind of.
There's really
face
no
is
way
like,
I could prove
you
it
know,
without revealing my identity and getting
anonymous.
myself into more trouble than I have already.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying
He's
saucers,
talking
flying
about
discs
reverse engineered crap.
that are out there of
And I do
extraterrestrial
believe
origin.
one of the clips we played in
and
the
they're
last
being test
episode,
flown
or maybe the episode
and,
before that, this guy's talking about a
basically just
similar event
analyzed.
that he describes.
You say
in a
there's
lot
9
different
saucers?
scenario,
How are those tests going?
where like the war,
as far
I guess,
as
that
what?
happened or something like that.
As far as whether they're successful and that sort of thing.
Oh, well, some of them are 100% intact and operate perfectly. The other ones are being taken apart. I was involved mainly in propulsion and the power source.
Where did we get these saucers? How did they come into the hands of the government?
I haven't the slightest idea, and you have to understand the information is very compartmentalized, and I was only allowed information that pertained particularly to what I was involved in.
But I mean, couldn't our government have made them as opposed to getting them from some alien beings?
Totally impossible. The propulsion system is a gravity propulsion system. The power source is an antimatter reactor. This technology does not exist at all. In fact, one of the reasons that I'm going forward with this information, it's not only a crime against the American people, it's a crime against the scientific community, which I've been part of for some time, or actively trying to duplicate these systems, yet they are in existence now and basically in the hands of the government.
What would happen to you if the government learned that you were giving us this information?
A lot.
Anything could happen. I don't
Especially
know.
back then.
It's, I haven't the slightest
Even
idea.
nowadays.
Well, you said you referred to getting into trouble. Have you had some repercussions already?
Yeah, I've been threatened with being charged with espionage. I've had my life threatened by them, my wife's life threatened by them, and I mean, I don't know where else you can go from there.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us. Pretty interesting stuff you've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, more news in just a moment.
Now, first we
Yeah.
go to Dan Rather in
So,
Beijing for a look
what
ahead
he
at
touches
CBS
on
Evening News.
is the fact that they were reverse engineering things at this site at an early stage in the game. So they're taking apart crafts, supposedly, taking parts, trying to figure out how they work. And that's what Bob Lazar became famous for, is because he supposedly snuck out some 115 and had all these different videos, sketches that he had remembered, you know, blueprints and stuff like that. But, you know, him and John Lear are actually best friends from back in the 80s. But like he was talking about with the, you know, reverse engineer technology and learning how to, they did actually reverse engineer some of this, because watch this next clip, folks, about magnetic levitation that we apparently mastered back in the earlier part of the last 20th century. Well before 2000, I'll say that.
The system, you know, coming out of Groom Lake underground facility
better.
transportation systems. Do you know
That's
anything
fine.
about those
So-
maglev tubes and
This is that,
how they're connected to
what you were just talking about,
Alamogordo
Look at
and
that.
White
Look
Sands
where that
Missile
goes.
Range,
And that
up the mountain there over
DIA
to
stands for
Sandia,
Denver
up to
freaking
Los
International
Alamos,
Airport at the
then
top.
Dulce,
We'll kind of cut
then
into it, but
Blanca
there's
Peak.
definitely a
There's
part
another
of this
center
underground,
there,
you know, the
and
dumbs.
that goes up to
Supposedly,
Colorado
these
Springs
are all
to
dumbs.
Denver. That's the only one I
And
know of. I know
this
there's a
is
lot
connected
more
to
I've read.
Oklahoma,
Those
in
are the only ones
Tulsa,
I can
Oklahoma.
confirm myself.
I've seen a
Do you
different
know
map
anything
in
about
my time.
these
Just one a
underground?
little
Just
more
they
detail.
exist as you
The actual
said.
sketch of it,
And,
oh man, you need
but
to
I
check
don't
that
have
out.
any independent confirmation, except a friend I have was and did work at Dulce, and he used to take the underground train station there.
Okay, so again, they started showing in those maglev videos, Derek. They were showing you that Area 51 is connected supposedly Supposedly, this is how far the rabbit hole goes, folks. This is how far the rabbit hole goes.
Very far.
Supposedly, Area 51 is part of a vast network of deep underground bases that are connected by maglev tunnels that they were just showing the diagram. That diagram goes out a ways, folks, a ways. But you should show them the next video, Derek, that shows what John Lear has to say about the development of the first dome that was ever done. This is what he had to say about it, which happened to be part of Area 51 as well.
All right, here we go, guys.
Roll the clip.
Roll the clip.
That they were starting to build.
And that's when they closed Groom Lake to everybody. There was no guards, no engineers, no airplanes, no nothing between 1975 and 1976. And a friend of mine that worked up there as a security guard, he said, to this day, I don't know what they were doing. They were building S4.
And why build all
And,
these
Touching back to those S4 thing, there's another
How long
comment
that
about
take for them to
He
complete
mentioned
that?
1 through 4.
2 years.
2 years. And how deep is S4? Do you know?
Then it was only 6 stories. But
Only
right
6
now,
stories.
it covers
Only
70
6
acres
stories down.
and,
That's 60 feet.
and God knows how many. And
So that's basically what he had to say about the development of deep underground military bases. There's several more, but there's been so much controversy over the existence of these things. Like if you go out to Dulce, that's a really popular one, and we have a clip about that. They even describe how, and there's been multiple witnesses. There's that Phil Schneider guy that we watched a video of one time. I know. And then there's John Lear himself talking about Dulce here in just a second. And there's multiple people that think something's definitely going on, and it's always in these remote areas of the Southwest, the Four Corner states, New Mexico, Arizona,
Where you have
Utah, Nevada.
Well, you have a large of mass. Like I think in that last clip he mentioned that it was not only was it 6 stories deep, but it was like 60 acres or something like that.
Right.
Or
Lots of
70
area, lots of room to move around,
bunch.
lots of time for people not to be around, just critters. But go ahead and roll this last clip for everybody. Folks, this is what John Lear's description of another incident that's been correlated by other various witnesses called the Dulce Base incident. Roll the clip, Derek.
told me about the altercation at Dulce, how it happened.
Did it actually happen in Dulce, or did it actually happen in
Actually,
Groom Lake.
at Dulce,
at Dulce?
they had 40 or 44 scientists being taught in this auditorium by
And this
one
was what I
grade.
was actually
And
mentioning
during
that
this
earlier clip,
education,
where this
a
is
security
where he was
Delta
talking
security guard
about
walked in the
where
door
that other guy
with a
from
sidearm. He
before
didn't
was
point it.
mentioning the war.
Right.
It
He
was
called
just
it
that he
a
had
war. He
ammunition
calls it a
within
accident.
sight of a gray, and they killed him instantly.
So depending on who you ask.
In
Right,
retaliation,
it was a
the
misunderstanding.
Delta Force saw on the
Cultural
monitor they had killed him. They went down to retaliate, and the gray ended up killing 66 of them. And I forget what the numbers are. I think it's 44 scientists and 22 Delta Force. And that was known as the altercation at Dulce. But these ufologists have turned this into the war at Dulce. It wasn't a war, it was an accident. Anyway, when Bob went to work at S4, and this is 3 years later after I heard the story, he said, I heard that story. Now, he said the report I read didn't say Dulce, but it might have, included the exact same figures, and it's possible my clearance wasn't high enough to.
So that all encompasses the mystery and the legend behind Area 51. I don't think anybody in the general public, including ourselves, will ever fully know the entirety of what goes on at that place, but it definitely is logical to assume that there is something.
Oh yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I mean, beyond just like I said, what I mentioned earlier in movies, where you see Will Smith pulling up with an alien, like, "Hey, yo, let me in. I know what's going on down here."
Right. Hollywood's take on it, and then there is some credibility to a lot of this.
Yeah, I like the reverse engineering of like technologies. I think you mentioned before, like microchips, not necessarily today, but in just casual conversation about this topic and whatnot.
Yeah, the microchip was supposedly reverse engineered after the Roswell crash was sent to Area 51. Area 51 distributed it to 3 of the biggest tech companies at the time. I know one was Southwestern Bell, one was AT&T, and I think the other one was Intel. Now, I have to look that up again. But anyways, it wasn't a decade later we took thousands of years advanced technology and managed to reverse engineer it into something we could use. The microchip was on the Roswell crash itself. So the theory is most of the modern things that we have, the microchip, for one, the semiconductor for another, were all alien technologies given to us at the right time of our development as a human species after the atomic bomb. The theory goes, aliens started really paying attention to us. Advanced species, we won't even have to refer to aliens, kind of a scary
Once
term.
we kind of got to that nuclear level.
Yeah. Once they saw us detonate the first nuclear bomb, they knew we were technologically advanced enough to handle what they had to give us. That's the actual theory. And
That
the
might be a
U.S.
theory
government,
for another episode, that's for sure.
right? It's going to be on another episode, absolutely. But that, I'm a firm believer that Area 51 is just one of many points to the plot, per se.
Absolutely, absolutely. Guys, I think that's gonna wrap up episode. I don't even know. 8, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna take a random shot in the dark on that one, guys. I'm not even gonna lie. But we took a day off for Mother's Day, so thank you for letting us kind of upload this one a little late.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Again, thank you.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Reddit at In the Trees.
Definitely, guys. And again, this is episode 8 of In the Trees with
Matt
and Derek. And guys, again, thank you for coming in and viewing this episode today. Thank you, guys.